a very, very important topic that we have now in Horizon Europe, kind of a novelty, we can say. But before we will get into that, I will just like to give you some small introduction. First of all, some technical issues, and then we will go into the event itself. For technical things, please communicate with us via the chat. So you can use the chat box to ask questions, comments, also to ask some technical issues if something is not working properly. We will respond to you as soon as possible. And we will also use the Q&A mode for the Q&A session at the end of the event. So be sure that we will answer your questions. In order not to be disturbed, I mean, not to have the window with us at the moment at the main screen, you can move it. And to do it, you just have to click the small square button with an arrow in it, that it's in the bottom right corner of the window with us. And then the window will move at the top of the chat box. I think it's more convenient than to follow the event in such a way. So that's actually it. Normally, this platform is quite easy to use, so I hope everything will be fine. And one final technical remark, you will receive presentations from the speakers automatically by the system after the event. That's for the technical part. And now a few words of introduction. My name is Ewa Kocińska-Lange, and I'm running the office of National Center for Research and Development in Brussels in cooperation with Business and Science Poland, and together with my team and together with my colleagues, our colleagues from Warsaw, from National Contact Point, also located at National Center for Research and Development. We prepared this, we organized this webinar for you today. And Kasia will give a few words in a few seconds as well. And from my side, again, we are very happy that we have you with us as attendees. Quite some registrations, and I see that people are still coming in, so that's great. And in our agenda, we have really quite some inspiring, I hope, presentations and speeches by our speakers. And the first one is will be Anne Pepin from European Commission, and we will hear what's going on, what's the change, and what do we have to do as representatives of public institutions as it comes to gender equality plans in Horizon Europe in order to be eligible for funding from next year on. And then we will have two panels. One panel with some Polish experiences in the field, with some project inspirations, but also already with the presentation of experiences of University of Warsaw, which has already a gender equality plan elaborated. And then the second panel will give us some view on what's happening abroad. That is what's happening not only in Poland in that sense, but also in Lithuania, Germany, and Belgium. So I think it will be a good inspiration, good overview what's happening in general in Europe and this topic. And as I said at the beginning, at the end we will have a Q&A session. So please use the chat all the time. You will observe it, and then we will go into Q&A sessions. Okay, that's it from my side, I think. So Kasia, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Eva. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Katarzyna Walczyk-Matuszyk, and I'm representing the National Contact Point for Research Programs of the EU, which in the current financial perspective, so the Horizon Europe, is under the structure of the National Center for Research and Development. As Eva mentioned, we are co-organizers of today's event. I'm a head of section on research potential, and with my NCP team, we are in charge of supporting Polish applicants under among others, the widening participation and strengthening, as well as the European research area. So as NCP expert, we do not only support the application process to Horizon Europe, but also implementation of the proposals. And during the last days, we are organizing in Poland the Widening and Era Week, and today's seminar is one of the point on this agenda, and we are very happy that it triggered such an attention of the audience, because the gender issues are of high importance. And if we compare gender aspects in Horizon 2020 with those in Horizon Europe, we are facing a big change. So today during the webinar, we are concentrating on the gender equality plans as eligibility criterion, but please remember that gender aspects shall be as well included in the research and innovation dimension as one and will be a subject of main evaluation process according to a word criterion. And last but not least, the gender is as well one of the selection criteria. And our experience shows that this criteria might result into the decision if the project will be put on the main list or not. So it should be also tackled in the proper manner. So our NCP role is to advise you as well in regard to gender as a horizontal issue of the proposals. Please visit our website, NCP website, follow our social media where we are informing about the events, best practices, and also offering our consultation. In addition, I would like to recommend you an initiative which is financed by the European Commission, and this is our NCP project, so NCP WideNet project, with our website and especially a newsletter. And under this, jointly with the European NCP community, we are also tackling important issues for applicants, and gender is one of them. So here again, you would be able to find some inspiration there for your future proposals. Last but not least, I would like to also use this opportunity to invite you to the tomorrow's ERA Info Day, which we are organizing online and will be held as well in English. And I wish you all the successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kasia, for this introduction, and I think without the further ado, we will now move to the key speech, let's say, for today's discussions from Anne Pepin. So, Anne, I hope you will be able to turn on your camera now and mic as well. And Anne is working as a senior policy officer in the gender section of the European Commission, so she's really there, planning and following everything that's happening there. And before, she worked as a director of the mission for the place of women at the French National Center for Scientific Research. So it seems like it's a long way for you and quite some experience. And her areas of interest are, among other, gender mainstreaming methods and tools, gender statistics, and gender equality tools, as well as research and development, obviously. And she will present really first-hand information about the whole concept of gender equality plans as a criterion in Horizon Europe. So, Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you very much for this introduction. And already, Kasia mentioned a few things that I will give you a little bit more detail on today in this presentation. So let me, yes, it works. So first of all, indeed, gender equality is strengthened in the Horizon Europe legal basis compared to Horizon 2020. I put here the links. You will have the presentation after today. The links directly to the legal text, actually the ones that are in all languages. So you will have one in Polish. And I'll address three different levels. There are three different stages related to gender equality that are covered and that you have to fulfill to have a successful proposal in Horizon Europe. The first one, and the bulk of my presentation will be on that, is at eligibility level. Having a gender equality plan that fulfills some mandatory requirements is now an eligibility criterion, a requirement to be eligible for funding. Then at the award criterion level, integrating the gender dimension into the content of research and innovation is by default an obligation. And finally, gender balance among researchers is a ranking criterion for proposals with the same score. So now let's move directly to the gender equality plan. So what is happening is actually based on over 10 years of support to the implementation of gender equality plans in research organizations, and academic institutions and public bodies, funded through FP7, through Horizon 2020. And overall, we will have been funding over 200 organizations in 30 projects to implement gender equality plan, and also funding accompanying projects to support the knowledge, so trainings, or develop communities of practice. And you will see this on the next slide. And I just considering Horizon 2020, there were more projects under FP7. And what you see here, per work program year, all the gender-related projects funded under the Science with and for Society work program. Here in green, the projects that directly implement gender equality plans, and you will see that you have Polish partners. When you have these little boxes here in blue, in dashed lines, it means there are Polish beneficiaries. So there are Polish beneficiaries in 5 of the gender equality plan implementing projects, but there are also Polish beneficiaries in those other projects, policy related, training related, and some that are really addressing the national level network of policy delegates. And this one is really about communities of practice, and UNICEF is about specifically gender-based violence in academic institutions. So you can see that over the years, there's quite a wealth of knowledge, of experience, and exchange of experience that have been funded by the European Commission. And many of these good practices are gathered in the GEAR tool that we have co-developed with the European Institute for Gender Equality. So there's already quite a lot of background and experience. And there's a policy, the ERA policy, that really has set institutional change through gender equality plan as a priority instrument. And this is confirmed by the latest council conclusions, for example. So what, I actually put the names of the Polish institution, and I was very happy to see, for example, that Jagiellonian University will be making a presentation today, and the National Information Processing Institute as well. So you can see there, and there are even more institutions that are involved in the community of practice on gender equality in Central and Eastern Europe. And you will have a presentation today on this community of practice. So it's really a great program that you came up with. And even Vilnius will be presenting. So now, what does this criterion entail? As of calls with deadlines in 2022 and onwards, so it's not yet applicable for the 2021 call for proposal, public bodies, research organization, and higher education institutions, and those research organization and academic institutions, be they private or public, will need to have in place a gender equality plan if they are located in member states and associated countries. It's a self-declaration, a questionnaire that the organization has to fill. It's already in the application forms now for statistical and monitoring purposes, but eventually it will be part of the legal entity validation process. So you would fill it in once, and this will be valid for the rest of the work program. It does not apply to NGOs, CSOs, or private for-profit entities, but this concerns beneficiaries and affiliated entities in projects. So what are the requirements? There are 4 of them, 4 process-related requirements. First of all, the gender equality plan or equivalent document, and I'll get back to that, needs to be public, endorsed, and signed by the top management of the institution. So on the institution website, and known inside, disseminated inside the institution. You need to have dedicated resources. Yeah, maybe a last point for the public document. You need to, it should demonstrate commitment, of course, of the institution to gender equality and set some targets and goals and measures to reach those targets. Then you need to have dedicated resources, be they human or financial. And this can be, for example, funding some positions in charge of gender equality in the institution, or implementing the gender equality plan. It can be earmarked time from some categories of staff working on the implementation of the gender equality plan. All this, of course, has to be evidence-based. So you need to collect sex and or gender disaggregated data and monitor it. So across the different categories of staff and students when it is a teaching institution, and annually report on this data. And finally, you need to have awareness raising and capacity building trainings on gender equality in research and innovation, including on unconscious bias in evaluation, and particularly tackling the decision makers, for example. So these are really the 4 mandatory requirements. And in the next slides, I give you just a few examples. These are some excerpts from a more detailed guidance that will be coming up soon, hopefully next week or in the coming weeks. So when we talk about public documents, some examples are what Trinity College in Dublin has been doing, or what the University of Deusto has been doing. You can see on their public website their gender equality plan. And of course, the GEAR tool provides a lot of examples of how to set up a JEP, the Genera project. So there are many guides to help you in doing that and setting targets, goals. Having dedicated resources, for example, the Oyezgin University in Turkey has a specific gender equality unit. Jagiellonian University in Poland has a new department that's responsible for ensuring gender equality. The Southern University in Denmark created a specific team for implementing their gender equality plan. And another dimension of allocating resources is even going into gender budgeting. So really integrating that in the financial processes, and the Garcia project that we funded actually developed a guide for this. And the ACT there's a dedicated ACT community of practice as well on gender budgeting. So quite a lot of information there. Data collection and monitoring. There are many templates, many recommendations already developed and published by the projects we've been funding. Other reports published and developed by different kinds of institutions. The National Center for Scientific Research in French has a very comprehensive annual publication of any kind of information about their staff, and that is sex disaggregated. The University of Belgrade in Serbia conducted a gender equality audit. You can consult that to see what they have been doing. The Israeli ministry also has a yearly publication of data. And a very interesting tool is the one developed by the ACT project, which is really a guide to carry out surveys, like climate surveys, and examining all the different policies and how they impact your staff. So there are many examples existing. And finally, for training and capacity building, in addition to projects that is called Gender Equality Academy, GE Academy, that delivers trainings, and there will be a summer school actually early next month organized by GE Academy. The University of Plovdiv, for example, has established a community of practice to develop and train and build capacity on gender equality. In Milano, there are trainings on gender stereotype. A funding organization, the main one in the Netherlands, has trainings on unconscious bias for their evaluators. Many other organizations do that as well. And the FESTA project has developed gender-sensitive PhD supervisory toolkit, for example. So these are just a set of examples. You will have more in the detailed guidance, and you will hear more from the presenters today. Then, in addition to the 4 mandatory steps, you have some recommended content areas, thematic areas that we have agreed upon. It's really a co-design, and actually all these building blocks for gender equality plans are the result of a consultation, co-design with gender experts, with our gender equality plan implementing projects, with national representatives. And there's an agreement, a consensus on the importance of these content areas for enacting sustainable change. So these are work-life balance and organizational culture, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, gender equality throughout the career, so from recruitment and career progression, the integration of the gender dimension into the content of the research that's developed in the organization or funded in the organization or taught in the organization, and also measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment. So just some key things that you should keep in mind, and there will be more information coming. It's a self-declaration. You don't upload your gender equality plan in your proposal submission. If you don't have it at proposal stage, it's okay. It will not affect the evaluation. There's a tolerance until the grant agreement preparation if your proposal is selected to be funded. If you don't have a gender equality plan ready at the time of the grant agreement signature, you cannot participate in the project. You will not be funded. So this is something to keep in mind when you're applying and when you're building your consortium, because if you have organizations that need to comply with this, they need to have that in mind. If you have an equivalent document, an inclusion and diversity strategy or some institutional strategy, but that covers the 4 mandatory requirements, then it's fine. It will be considered as an equivalent. When you sign the grant agreement, you are committing, and that was already the case in Horizon 2020, to take all measures to promote gender equality in the implementation of the action. And now you also have to keep in mind that this should be in line, coherent with what you have in your gender equality plan. And there will be random compliance checks in the duration of Horizon Europe. I cannot go into the details on how these will happen, how frequently these will happen. We're devising those currently. As I said, already a lot of information in the GEAR tool, but more guidance is coming up and more support will be, and is already starting with a pilot knowledge and support facility on institutional change through gender equality plans that we have launched. So the guidance, the written guidance I'm mentioning and the examples I gave come from this document that will be coming out shortly. There will also be an accompanying video on the different building blocks relating to the gender equality plan eligibility criterion in Horizon Europe. There will be online trainings, which will be focused especially to those countries where there is a lower amount of institutions that already have a gender equality plans. And right now, Poland is on the list, although you have very good examples already that are leading the way. There will be online workshops for mutual learning, and we want to base those on the European University Alliances that already exist, and there are Polish organizations in several of those, but we will open them a bit more. These will be coming out. The trainings and the workshops should be starting as of September. And we are setting up a network of contact points at national level who will be in a capacity to inform on this gender equality plan eligibility criterion and even to deliver training if needed. So this is coming up, and these people will be approved by the corresponding national authorities, of course. So here you go for the gender equality plan eligibility criterion. Now, a few words on the other important things that you need to keep in mind and novelties in Horizon Europe. The integration of the gender dimension in research and innovation content. This, if you're not too familiar with, this is an umbrella term to cover the fact that you should pay attention to sex, so biological attributes, but also gender, social-cultural norms, relations, behaviors that are that should be taken into account when you ask your research question, when you develop your concepts, when you collect data, monitor data, analyze data, and when you report on it, when you think about who your project or your transfer to the applications could benefit to. So this is an overall thing that you should be taking it into account. It's part of the methodology under the excellence criterion for research and innovation action and innovation actions. It's also strongly encouraged in the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, and also encouraged in the ERC grants. And how it will work is when you look at a topic, if you don't see actually such a sentence as the one I wrote here. So if you don't see in the topic something saying in this topic, the integration of the gender dimension is not mandatory, it means you have to do it. And this will appear in the description of the topics. You still have the possibility in your proposal, if you really think sex as a variable or gender as a variable are not relevant to what you're developing, even if there's no such a sentence, you can justify why you do not integrate it not in your project. So there's possibility, but it has to be grounded on scientific facts. For example, if there's already existing literature that says that different, like biological sex differences can play a role, or the gender dimension has an effect, then I mean, you cannot justify that you are not looking at it. So, of course, in many very technical areas, developing a fabrication technique for some specific components, sex and gender may not be relevant, and then the topic in general will indicate it through a sentence like this one. And we are doing this because paying attention to potential differences and to gender equality, this will bring excellence. This will bring more rigor, more reproducibility to the research that's developed, to the innovation that come out of it. And this globally enhances societal relevance of research and innovation. And again, we already have many examples, many guidance on the methods to do so. So methods for sex analysis, gender analysis, and even intersectional analysis. So looking at intersection between sex or gender and other social categories such as ethnicity, disability, age, so social status, all this. There are specific recommendation and hints in this report that we published in November. You have the link here. There's also a website that's hosted by Stanford University, because the chair of this expert group is from Stanford. And you have case studies in different areas. This is relevant for health, of course, for social science and humanities, but also for climate change, also for energy, transport, urban planning, agriculture, taxation. All these you will find in this guide. And there's also more information, more resources in the Horizon program guide that was released last week. So this should be helpful for applicants. And finally, the gender balance in research teams. So in the ranking of proposal with the same score, there's a set of methods to have a priority order. And first, it's cover everything that's in the topic description. So if one that covers more of the content will be ranked first, then you look at the excellence criterion and then the impact criterion. It's reversed for innovation actions. And then it's gender balance among the personnel that are in the researchers table. So it's only looking at researchers who will be primarily responsible for carrying out the action. So, and after that comes geographical diversity. What's important to have in mind also, and that's a novelty, it's that we have defined a third category to declare your gender identity for researchers. You have three, which are women, men, and now non-binary. This is really a result of an increasing request from some researchers and also some changes of legislation in several countries. So for the gender balance criterion itself, because we do know that people declaring as non-binary represent in general less than 2% of the population, but still we want to be inclusive and allowing them to declare themselves as non-binary if they wish so. In the gender balance criterion, we are only considering women and men. So it's we will compare the projects in how they approach more the gender balance between women and men. So I'll stop here. You will have on the slide some links to our gender equality in research and innovation policy page, where we created specific sections on gender equality in Horizon Europe, and also on the gender equality plan eligibility criterion directly. We have a fact sheet on the different provision in Horizon Europe with 2 additional pages specifically on the JEP eligibility criterion. We have a frequently asked question document. It's also on the funding and tenders portal. And there's already a webinar that was delivered on the 21st of April, where I go into a little bit more detail in some ways on the different gender equality requirements in Horizon Europe. And I'm sure you know very well about the funding tenders portal, where you already have all the different work program parts, the application forms, so the program guide now. So this is all on this website. And I will stop here. And yes, you can have a functional mailbox if you have specific question on the JEP. I can answer some questions now, and I'll be back also I cannot stay the whole duration. I'll try to stay as much as I can because you have some great panels. And I'll be back also at the final Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Anne. That's indeed very, very inspiring, and it's quite revolutionary, I would say. So we are already very, very busy, and we will be in the next months all over Europe preparing those gender equality plans, I'm pretty sure. And we already have some questions. So since we have some time, I will then put them on the screen. One by one. So the first question concerns the budgeting issue.
Well, it's really I recommend that you go on the community of practice on gender budgeting. I can maybe put the link even in the chat here. I'll do that afterwards. But it's really thinking, when you define your budget, you want to make sure that they benefit. I mean, there are many ways to think about it, but it can be making sure that women and men get the same amount of funding. That question on gender equality are funded, that's integrated in the way you design your programs or the way you distribute money in your institution. So they're many ways to address this. The European Commission is really now even developing this more. There's really a will to do that, and it's also pushed by the European Parliament, which is really strongly recommended that this be more widely implemented. So it's difficult to go into more details, but really we'll have concrete example of what certain universities are doing. This community of practice is led by the Icelandic representatives. So they have done that in their university, and many others are doing that as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What's the link between this new criterion and HR excellence in research?
Well, as you know, the HRS4R, let's call it, the human HR excellence in research label. The purpose of this is to comply with the Charter and Code for researchers. So, of course, you have the list of 40 principles, and gender equality is covered, but it is not necessarily addressed in all the action plans that institutions submit. So sometimes if you have the label and you do address gender equality, most likely you can comply with most of the 4 mandatory related requirements to have a plan that's adopted, endorsed, to dedicate resources to its implementation. Usually you come up with a team to collect sex and gender disaggregated data. This will maybe not general, so this is something you will need, and you need to have some training on the topic. So many institutions that do have this label, they should be compliant, but it's not automatic. So it's really for you to check that it does match. But you may know that right now there's a revision of the Charter and Code that is going on. There's at the level of the European Research Area, Research and Innovation Area Committee, the ERAC. There are standing working groups that are working together on how to improve the list of principles and better take into account gender equality, the different levels of gender equality that has to be addressed. Because right now, in the principles, you don't have gender-based violence, for example, and you don't have in the evaluation of research and researchers how they integrate the gender dimension. So there are proposals by the standing working groups on human resources and mobility, on gender in research and innovation. And I see that Magdalena Schrobak-Tatara is here today, and she's been part of that standing working group era related, and the one on open science are working together on how to better take into account these new important priorities in the Charter and Code, and they will propose it to the Commission. So it's not yet there that the new label or the new HR, the human resources strategy will better take into account gender equality. So at this stage, you should check that you comply with the 4 mandatory requirements that we ask for.
Yeah, indeed, it's quite a relevant question because a lot of institutions implemented this strategy and they received the label. So it's partly there, but indeed, this is not exactly the same.
But it also means that you know how to proceed with gathering your different categories of staff, reflecting on what are the main issues, developing a gender, an equality plan or a plan. You know about the process, so you do have an advantage in developing your gender equality plan.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Some details about the trainings.
Yes, I think I already mentioned that the GEAR tool has plenty of those tools, those documents and examples. And the projects that we'll be presenting in the following panels have also developed many of such tools. There's the specific project called GE Academy that delivers practical trainings, and there are more coming up with the pilot facility that I talked about.
Okay. Another question about who should be this person at the responsible for gender equality.
I mean, there are many examples. I gave a few, and that's up to the institution to decide what is the most useful. In general, just one person, it may not be enough. You may need a team, and it's a collective effort at every level. But there are many models. It really depends on your organizations. In some organization, it's really the rector leading the way, or it's a vice president position for equality, diversity, inclusion, or I mean, it's a unit in charge of gender equality. It's an officer that has a team. So it really depends.
Okay, thank you. But sounds rather like a team, not like a part-time job for one person. Okay.
No, definitely, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Next one. From a smaller institution. Hope you can read it.
Yes, so it's an institution with 20 people. Is it supposed to be 80? I'm not sure. There's no specific amount. I can understand indeed when you're a smaller institution, but you can still endorse a plan and have your highest level management approve of gender equality. You can still reflect on what can be done. You can still collect some basic statistics, and you can still try to raise awareness on this issue if you're 20 people. I think the 4 mandatory steps are applicable and can be adapted to the size of an institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one, I think it's a rather quick one. So it's about the consortium, I think.
Yes, indeed. If you are an SME at this stage, you do not need to have a gender equality plan. But if you're in a consortium with an organization that has to have a gender equality plan, if you are the coordinator, for example, you should make sure that all organizations in your consortium, if they need to have one, do have one at the grant agreement preparation stage. Otherwise, they will not be able to participate in the project, will not be funded. And if you cannot reallocate the task that they were supposed to carry out to other partners that are in the consortium, then it may block the whole project. So it's something to be taken into account.
Okay, thank you. The next one is with some more details about the non-binary.
This, I mean, we are not requesting in the gender equality plan that you develop that you necessarily look at intersectional aspects. So related to gender identity or to sexual orientation or to ethnicity, but we do encourage that you look at that, because you should think about gender equality between women and men in all their diversity. But it's not a requirement. Really, what we require are the 4 mandatory building blocks that we detailed. And indeed, if you want to be more inclusive and have actions towards non-binary, I mean, opening to different gender identities, you're welcome to do so. And this is what Horizon Europe is doing by introducing this new category. Yes.
Okay, there are some more questions about trainings, webinars, and also some comment that GE Academy is fully booked and there's a need for more places.
Yes, and like I said, the pilot facility will be offering it, and there will be one for Poland for sure. And there should be a call for expression of interest. You also should know that most of the GE Academy trainings, the webinars, they're available right now. You can watch them. So there's a lot of material already available that you can follow. There are some live, of course, trainings, but the webinars you can watch.
Okay, another one about the specific template for this.
We're not giving a template. It's up to the institution, but you have such possible templates, such possible examples in the gear tool, and you will have more in the coming up guidance. It's really up to the institution to fulfill, because a big, something that's really crucial to an effective gender equality plan is that it be targeted, adapted to the institution and to its national context. So it's really, it depends upon the local situation, but the building blocks that we defined, these are quite, let's say, universal in things that you should keep in mind. And then it's up to the institution based on the diagnosis and the situation and their specific situation on how they will proceed.
Yeah, indeed, a specific template could be actually counter-effective. So, it's true. It's better to leave it like that. I think so too. Okay, another one. Should this plan be in English and available on funding and tenders portal?
No, like I said, you don't need to upload your gender equality plan. So you don't. It's on your institution's website. And again, I mean, if you don't need to put everything like the budget details, or you should respect the GDPR, of course, but it's not something we ask you to upload. And then it can be in Polish, no problem. I mean, it's in the language that's used in the institution. If you want to do it in English, great. And if there's a compliance checks, it will be easier for the Commission to check.
Okay.
But you don't need to.
Next one.
If the institution has guidelines. Again, you have to check by yourself that these guidelines or I mean, if there are, it has to be signed by the top management. I mean, you have to respect the 4 mandatory building blocks. So this may be enough if it complies, and it may not be enough.
Okay, another question. What if this gender equality is part of larger anti-discrimination action?
Like I said, yes. I mean, if you do comply with the 4 mandatory requirements, but it's called something else, it's called anti-discrimination, then that's fine.
Okay. Then we have another question, but I think it's again linked to this excellence in research. So it's
I think I already and I highlighted, I guess, that it does not cover everything of the recommended areas. That's for sure. I mean, gender-based violence, it's nowhere mentioned in the HRS4R or the integration of the gender dimension. So these are not covered. But these are just recommended areas. If you think that in your HRS4R action plan, you cover the 4 mandatory requirements, you can check that out, and it may be the case, then indeed you comply.
Okay, another question about the money for new infrastructure, daycare facility.
That can be, of course, that's a clear proof of dedicating resources, but it doesn't need to be this. I mean, it's really adapted to what are the needs in your institution.
Okay, and one last question at the moment, but it's still related to trainings and budgets. So I think you answered that, underlined that quite a lot. So you just have to follow the information on websites.
Oh, what I can say, I mean, since it's an eligibility criterion, if you don't have it already, you won't receive money through Horizon Europe. So we don't give you money to do it. But in the widening participation and strengthening the European Research Area program part, where we implement the new European Research Area, we will give money to the implementation of inclusive gender equality plan. So gender equality plan that make an effort to be intersectional, there will be money for that. And especially for widening countries. This will come in 2022 work program, and in 2021 we are funding centers of excellence, think tanks on how can you develop inclusive gender equality plans. So there will be information on this and more policy coordination on the implementation of the new era.
Okay, and very last question. It's about the exact criterion and what exactly will happen.
Indeed, we're looking for balance. The objective is gender balance in research teams, so it will be the project closer to 50%, let's say.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anne, for your presentation and for answering all those questions. It was already quite an interest, and we are happy. We have actually at the moment almost 320 participants, so it's really quite an interest. That shows quite an interest in the topic. So as if you can stay with us, please, and we will be happy to have you back also at closer to the end for maybe some other questions. And now we will move to our first panel, and this panel is about best practices in the topic, in the subject, from Poland, from different institutions engaged in different projects and also developing their own gender equality plans already. So I will invite first Professor Julia Kubisa. So if you could please turn on your mic and camera, and your presentation will be soon here as well. Professor is a Chief Equality Officer at the University of Warsaw, and she works in the Department of the Sociology of Work and Organizations, and she takes part in many projects connected with equal treatment. Her research interests include gender and the world of work from the feminist perspective, transformations of public services, as well as sociology of work and organizations. So she will present us the outstanding achievements in Poland of the University of Warsaw in terms of its gender equality plan, which is the first gender equality plan in Poland. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for such a great introduction. I suggest that I will turn off my camera because of the internet connection that might be a little bit weaker. And well, thank you for having me today. It's a great pleasure to present briefly gender equality plan that was introduced at the University of Warsaw. And today I'll present the background, how did we do the preparations and the 5 goals of the gender equality plan. So the gender equality plan that is available in Polish and in English at the University of Warsaw, it combines equality, diversity actions and actions that are targeted at prevention of discrimination, and it's it's planned for 2020, from 2020 to 2023, although it was introduced last year after the outbreak of pandemic. So some of our actions were slightly slowed down, well, due to pandemic reasons. As for some of the background information, so the work on the JAP started in 2017 when the University of Warsaw created a post for the and since then there were several preparation actions performed. So there was internal diagnosis that was based on qualitative and quantitative and desk research project that were conducted in chosen faculties at the university, and also a survey on the general university level. Then, after we had the outcomes of the research project, we presented the outcomes in a form of internal workshops with the representatives of the faculties and central administration, and we had a round of consultations for the draft of the gender equality plan. We used the diagnosis, and we also used we used inspiration for good practices from the international universities, and of course the AG solutions in the toolkit for creation of JAP, and then after we had the gender equality plan, we had a round of internal and external reviews. I'm afraid that my presentation just oh, okay, it's fine. Okay. Yes, so we had the expert reviews. So what I aim to say is that our JAP was based on different sources, the research project, the good practices. It was reviewed several times by different experts. So all in all, we have 5 objectives that include actions and indicators, and the JAP was created by me. I act as the Chief Equality Specialist at the moment, and the Ombudsperson at the University of Warsaw. So what about our objectives? As I said, it's 5 of them, and I would say that I really feel that we are on the kind of pioneer path, because we had to choose which objectives are the most important for us, and we had to resist the problems, to address all the problems that were discovered during the research project. So we planned quite a lot of actions, but when we were planning it, we thought, okay, we need to narrow down. So we had much more ideas for the JAP, but maybe in the second round, the next round, or the next edition of JAP. Anyways, the first objective is about raising awareness of the importance of equality issues and strengthening positive attitudes towards diversity. So it's basically about education and about strengthening and it's about education about equality, diversity, and anti-discrimination. So we are developing online courses and workshops for students and for employees. We'll be creating a quality observatory, so all the data that is required to collect, that refers to gender, will be kept in one place. And in this objective, we developed the anti-discrimination policies. We've already had some, but now we already introduced the anti-discrimination procedure. We introduced the guidelines about prevention of sexual harassment. The second objective is about supporting the development of women's scientific careers. So here we have, gathering of statistical data, but we also have here two, I think, really nice actions. One is about mentoring program for young female researchers that is based on recruitment, and this is a project to pipeline, which was clearly visible in our research project outcomes. So one project is about the mentoring project for the chosen female researchers, and there's another action which is called PhD female students networking, which is about giving strength and supporting young female researchers in the early stages of their careers, so that the leaking pipeline phenomena is addressed at the very early stage. Then the third objective is about ensuring gender equality in recruitment of female and male employees and in doctoral schools. And this is something that we are currently discussing it. The several actions that aim to balance the recruitment strategies for the faculties and for the PhD schools. So I must say that this is when the Polish context comes into play, because this was quite criticized by the, let's say, conservative or right-wing, I should say, organizations, that this kind of gender-balanced recruitment is discriminative. So I think it's a really good point to discuss it in the discussion phase of our webinar today. Then the fourth objective is about work and family balance. So we are making first steps into, we already had some care infrastructure and we want to develop it. Then we had some recommendations about home office, and then pandemic came. So actually became much more doable, and everybody had to do this anyways. Yes, and the fifth objective is about the representation. So we have we aim to we are producing policies and recommendations for more gender balanced representation in not only at faculties, chairpersons of faculties levels, but also different committees and commissions that everyone who has some scientific title has to participate in. So we want to avoid those situations with male leadership and female administrative activities. And this applies both to to academics and to student committees. These are our 5 objectives. And I'll be happy to answer questions, I guess, after this round of presentations. So thank you very much for your, thank you very much for listening.
It's quite ambitious indeed, and also inspiring, and first of all doable. Yeah, that's doable. Mm-hmm. So it's possible to develop this plan and do everything according to the methodology that it's there. And I wish you also very good luck in implementing it.
Thank you very much.
And we will come back to you with some questions afterwards. And now I will give the floor to Dr. Anna Knapińska, or Magda Chrobak-Tatara. Actually, both of them will talk to us about the engagement in the Gender Action Project already mentioned before by Anne. Well, I will introduce you both at the beginning. So Anna is well, Magda actually is the chief specialist. Oh, Magda is here. Okay, great. Is a chief specialist at the Ministry of Education and Science in Poland, and she deals with policy making in the field of European research and development. And she will be joined by Anna Knapińska from the National Information Processing Institute, and for the last 15 years Anna has been working over there, and she's a chief researcher in the Laboratory of Databases and Business Analytics. And indeed, we are looking forward to hear your experiences from Gender Action Project and its objectives, and some first, as I imagine, results already. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eva, for this kind introduction. And first of all, thanks for inviting us to this important and timely event. Since JEPs are becoming increasingly important instrument also in the context of European research area or era development, I'm going to present this topic against this particular background. My presentation will be shared with Anna Knapińska from National Information Processing Institute, who is a formal partner in the consortium of Gender Action Project. And myself from the ministry side, I am cooperating with the Institute on this project. So first, I'm going to say a few words about the Gender Action Project itself. Then I will address the issue of how JEPs feature in the Gender Action Project activities. I will then pass the floor to Anna, who will present a data dashboard, which is one of the main inputs from the side of Polish partner. And we will finish off by inviting you all to our project final conference that will also be devoted partly to the topic of JEPs. Okay, so let's start off. Gender Action is Horizon 2020 project that is aimed at creating policy community composed of representatives of member states and associated countries. The project is devoted to contributing to making progress as regards implementation of equality-related actions in the field of research and innovation, particularly in the context of so-called ERA national action plans, which are the main instruments for implementing ERA at the national level. But we also addressed actions at European or international levels. A large chunk of our work is devoted to fostering policy coordination, best practices exchanges, or creating mutual learning opportunities. The project is funded under the SWAF's call. It lasts 54 months. It ends in September this year. Actually, it has been extended by 6 months due to COVID pandemics. There are 13 project partners in the consortium, and what is important to note, there are also institutions from so-called widening countries, including Poland. There are also institutions from Slovenia, Slovakia, and 5 associate partners. The whole consortium is coordinated by the Czech institution, to be specific, the Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences. So what we do in our project? The project is devoted to mapping and analyzing member states' progress towards implementation of equality-related actions through ERA national action plans and strategies. We have mapped and benchmarked strategies and actions undertaken by member states, as well as developed methodology to measure progress. And actually, this work has been taken up by the National Information Processing Institute, and Anna will say a few words on how we use this activity developed within the project to develop statistics regarding women in science. We also deliver training events to raise experts' knowledge in providing professional support to national stakeholders. Mutual learning opportunities are also extended to policymakers, to national stakeholders. And a very important part of our work within the project is preparation of policy briefs and strategic policy advice as regards advancing equality-related actions in the era. Due to time constraints, I do not have opportunity to expand on these policy briefs. However, I invite you wholeheartedly to visit our project homepage. I have provided here the links to the project homepage, as well as to the policy briefs, some of which are also available in Polish. In particular, these are briefs that concern the topic, for example, of structural change, or the role of research funders in promoting equality-related actions. There are also projects, other framework program projects that address the topic of JEBs, and I have also included the link in my slide. As Polish partner, we are also working on developing a so-called manual for Polish institutions on JEBs. It will be available in Polish, and we are planning to put the manual on the Gender Action Project website, to be specific, under the section where you can find the policy briefs in Polish language. Okay, let me now turn your attention to two project outputs that are more directly linked to gender equality plans topic. The first one is the mutual learning workshop on monitoring equality-related era priority. It was a workshop organized by the Austrian partner in November last year. It was a webinar. And we discussed there the experiences of member states where JEBs are compulsory, such as, for example, Ireland, Spain, or Austria. And also we discussed how to best design national support for JEBs implementation. Some of the conclusions that I think are worth mentioning in the context of our today's webinar are the following. So first, JEBs carry a great potential for introducing sustainable institutional change. But in order to do so, the support from top management has to be ensured, as well as long-term vision in mind is necessary. And what I mean by that is that preparing JEBs cannot be regarded as a one-time investment, but they have to be revised, updated, and treated with this long-term vision in mind. Preparation of JEBs should be based on comprehensive self-analysis of institution and prepared so that it fits the purpose that the institution seeks. So there are no one-size-fits-all JEBs or universal JEBs existing. Next thing is the issue of capacity, resources, and supporting structures. When they are ensured, then we can avoid the danger of window dressing or a lip service being paid to gender equality. So that is why it is of utmost importance. The key role of monitoring to explore JEB potential for structural change cannot be overlooked. So that is why the development of meaningful indicators that trace the implementation, thanks to which we can like follow the implementation of JEPs is so crucial, as well as sex disaggregated data collection. And last but not least, mutual learning activities, peer-to-peer workshops, creating communities of practice. All these exchanges are important and a very valuable source of inspiration for institutions' JEPs. Okay, and the second output that I would like to present is the report prepared not specifically by Gender Action, but by Iraq Standing Working Group on Gender in Research and Innovation, with which a Gender Action project closely cooperates. The report was issued in June this year, and it is entitled JEPs as a Catalyst for Change. The report analyzes the adoption of JEPs at a national level, as well as identifies challenges and needs as regards JEPs implementation. So here you can see the state of play as regards JEP requirement at a national level, state of play for 2021. In blue, there are countries marked where JEP requirement has been issued and it is compliant with Horizon Europe requirements, whereas in green, there are countries that have not issued such a requirement. And as you can see, in this group, there are many so-called widening countries. But what I would like to stress is that institutions in those countries, of course, some institutions do have JEPs that have been developed, for example, as a result of their framework program participation or at their own initiative or as a result of national support. So what is important to note is that the absence of JEP requirement is by no means an indicator of the absence of equality-related activities in those member states and associated countries. And I would like to finish off my part with saying a few words about the main challenges to JEP implementation as identified in the report. So the first thing is building political consensus to achieve substantive change through JEPs. It very often happens that cultural barriers and resistance are among the main obstacles to advance equality-related actions at the national and EU level. So that is why it is so important to build like a wider understanding of equality and JEPs, also including national contexts. The second thing is policy coordination to build a common definition of JEP requirement. So here I mean understanding JEP minimum criteria or process-related criteria regarding JEP preparation and implementation that Anne Pepin has talked about. The third thing is the uptake of JEPs at the national level. And what I mean here is that information on JEPs should be easily available at for the national institutions. Also, reporting schemes on JEPs should be in place. Monitoring and evaluation of JEP implementation is also of key importance. It very often happens that the adoption of JEP is only the first step, but as the report says, it's hardly ever happens that like the evaluation of JEP implementation and that there is enough information on these stages of JEPs in the institutions. Mobilizing support and resources to build capacity. So actions like coordination, information sharing, building what the report calls like the national ownership and accountability for JEP is of key importance. And last but not least, the involvement of private sector. In some countries, including Poland, it happens that the private sector has more experience in implementing equality-related actions. So that is why using cross-sectoral platforms for cooperation exchanges can bring additional value to institutions from higher education and research sectors. I have provided here the direct link to the report. You can have a look at it in your free time. There are also experiences or policies described that addressed how JEPs are treated as a policy instrument in different member states in the EU. So it is really worth reading, having a look at. Okay, I will now pass the floor to Anna, who will introduce the so-called data dashboard that we are preparing. Anna, over to you.
Just a small interruption. Please take care of time as we are a bit running out of it for this panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Magda. The data dashboard, which we are designing and implementing at the National Information Processing Institute, is our main task within the Gender Action Project. And the assumption is that to build well-constructed and efficient JEPs, we need knowledge about systemic phenomena. So we see the dashboard as a supportive tool for research-performing organizations and other institutions which intend to implement JEPs. Grasping a bigger picture, for example, how Poland looks in comparison with other countries, should help strengthen the need to assure gender equality in academia. And that's why showing data on the dashboard, we need to start with outlining the issue of gender equality in the European Union. And the new European research area is a system focusing on gender equality and gender mainstreaming, including JEPs. And within priority 4 of ERA, so-called national action plans, NAPs, are created. And it means that member states and associated countries should develop policies that address gender imbalances, particularly at senior levels and in decision making. So one of the work packages within Gender Action Project done by our partners from Austria has been focused just on benchmarking the implementation of priority 4 in NAPs. And they used all the information collected to develop a typology of countries concerning NAP implementation. And they've distinguished 6 clusters of countries, among others, countries with comprehensive plans and targeted implementation, these having some inconsistencies in NAPs, countries without NAPs. And our dashboard will draw on this typology of countries. We treat this division as a starting point, and in the next step, we would like to add some additional indicators for concrete country situation, namely the position in the European Innovation Scoreboard, Gender Equality Index developed by EIGE, and a share of female professors. And finally, for a particular country or group of countries, if it's needed, we show data on women in science coming from the Eurostat and other external sources like UNESCO and OECD. And there will be 4 main types of the basic reports in the dashboard on male and female students in member states and associated countries, including division on STEM field and social sciences and humanities field, on graduates from the universities, on people working in the areas related to science and technology, and finally on researchers from different sectors. As I mentioned before, the source of data is essentially the European Statistical Office. I think it's worth devoting a few moments to taking a look at the exemplary report. And in this case, it's a report on students. And the user can choose filters from different categories, including country name and country's characteristics. I said about it. It's an approach to NAPS and 3 other indexes: gender equality, grade A, and innovative development. And the third filter regards students' characteristics, where gender is a basic variable, and we have also education level and education field. Filters are interconnected, which means that if we want to see only countries with, like this instance, actionistic approach to national action plans, only names of countries meeting the requirements are displayed, and we are getting to know that these countries have either moderate or modest gender equality index. For example, on the graph below, we will see the number of students in these actionistic countries. Generally, we want to offer many types of visualizations: horizontal, vertical charts, line charts, pie charts, bubble charts, maps. And the visualizations will be interactive, which means that users can display data after moving the cursor on it, drill down the data by enabling or disabling the preview, and so forth. We also would like to show special tiles summarizing crucial information from the reports, like increases and decreases in the number of men and women over time. And the possibility of downloading data in different formats means that dashboard components can be used also for personal reports and presentations. The main idea behind the dashboard is to give a tool with statistics which are easy to understand and use, and visitors will find reliable sex and gender disaggregated data there and create their own intersections. We would like to publish not only sheer statistics, but also offer an insight into them, and that's why each interactive report will contain both a short methodological outlook and a more detailed description of methods. And what is more, they will include an expert commentaries on data and linkages to gender action policy briefs or other materials. And access to the dashboard will be via the project webpage. And from the standpoint of the project and its purposes, our dashboard will help communicate information on gender issues in science, including policies towards women. And as a source of verified data, our tool can serve politicians, experts, and researchers to create gender equality plans as well, we hope. And so this is the dashboard. And finally, we, as Magda said, we are pleased to invite all of you to the Gender Action Final Conference, organized hand in hand with the Slovenian presidency. So the event will take place in the virtual format in July. Among the speakers, we will have commissioners, representatives of umbrella organizations, and JEPS stakeholders. There is all information on the webpage below, so you are warmly welcome to register. And thank you for your attention. Thank you. And today's meeting.
Thank you very much for your contribution, and it's quite inspiring solutions that you developed thanks to this project. And now we will move, for the sake of time, to our next speaker, next presenter. And I would like to welcome Dr. Alicja Puścian from Nęcki Institute of Experimental Biology. Okay, you're with us, perfect. Hello. And she's a council member of Women in Science at Nęcki. So perfectly the right speaker for us. And she's also a postdoctoral, she was also a postdoctoral researcher at Yale University. And her research interests, among others, behavioral flexibility and social bonds. And she will present us a bit more information about the important initiative at Nęcki, which is WISEN, and its mission, goals, and why science needs women. The floor is yours, Alicja.
Thank you so much, Eva, for the introduction. I am both honored and elated to be a part of this conversation today and to be able to speak to you among those who have done so much already for advancing our cause or more equitable academia. As Eva said, I am a council member at Women in Science at NENSKI, which is a non-profit organization whose main goal is to advance equality in science and build more equitable scientific community, which is also the title of my today's talk. Women in Science at NENSKI have an ambitious goal of becoming a reference flagship organization of the sort, not only in our corner of the world, but also on a more global scene of the advocates that are gathering themselves and organizing themselves around the cause of more diversified, equitable, and inclusive science at large as a gateway to the advancement of research globally. So the first thing I would like to talk about is our mission that is being built on 3 different pillars. First of those pillars is advocacy. We are advocating for elimination of discrimination in academia, also in society at large. Specifically, we advocate for gender equality, but also for the increased inclusion of research representatives from underrepresented communities, such as ethnic minorities, for example. The second pillar, directly stemming from the first one, is the promotion of the interests of those both underrepresented groups. Specifically, we mean highlighting their achievements and their meaning and importance for science and innovation in general. I think a very striking recent example is unprecedented involvement of women and minorities in the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. This is a scientific achievement that I think cannot be overstated. The third pillar of our mission is that we think about ourselves as a networking platform. We are building bridges between our organization and different organizations and individuals around the world of the same goals, of the same aim, not only to exchange expertise, but also to broaden our communal reach to advertise the cause of more equality in science. Obviously, bringing about our mission would never be possible if it wasn't for the specific strategic goals that we have in mind. And here I would like to present 3 of them. First of them is a global massive collaboration with leading international organizations that have aligning goals to provide the highest possible impact content and events. Here I mean education, organizing events and organizing content that is going to be enlightening the cause of equitable science. Secondly, as science is embedded, for better or worse, in a broader societal context, we are really focusing on societal outreach, both via traditional and social media. And thirdly, our goal is to compile and share resources. We want to become a database, an easily accessible one for everybody who wants to advance the cause of more equitable science. We gather data, protocols, good practices, you name it, and we make sure that they are of the highest possible quality and really well fact-checked. So having said that, let me give you some examples of the realization of our strategic goals. Here are some examples of realizing the first one of them, which is building a global network of collaboration in order to organize events with high-profile equality advocates from all over the world. The 2 examples that I have in mind here are the events that we have recently organized. One of them with Professor Eileen Pollack. She's American from Minnesota currently, but she was one of the 2 first women who have ever graduated from Yale in physics, but more importantly, she's a major advocate for women in science and beyond, and she's an author of the New York Times Editor's Choice novel, The Only Woman in the Room: Why Science is Still a Boys' Club. The second example would be an event with Professor Carmen Sandy. Professor Sandy is a very well-recognized researcher and also global advocate for equality in science. She's a past president of Federation of European Neuroscience Societies, but here again, more importantly, a founder and chair of ALBA Network. ALBA Network is one of the best-known organizations globally advocating for women and minorities equality in science and academia and research. ALBA Network, most notably, made a global call to action last year. They launched a declaration of equality in science, and this declaration was signed by over 200 leading scientific institutions from around the world. Oxford, Yale, Max Planck Institute, European Brain Council, and many, many more. I advise you to look into it. So our goal, by bringing those advocates in collaboration with different organizations around the world, is to bring the highest possible level of education on gender equality and the most interesting content possible. As I've mentioned before, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for collaborating with our partners. With this slide, I would like to present to you the list of our current partners and patrons, but specifically, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we are not only collaborating with science-related institutions such as previously mentioned ALBA Network or Nensky Institute or Yale Alumni Network or Foundation for Polish Science. We are also bringing to the table partners from the media world, like presented here, Forbes Women, because they are absolutely critical for us in bringing about our second strategic goal, which is societal outreach. I have mentioned before that we do it by both traditional and social media. Let me focus first on our traditional media outlets efforts. We know that even the best quality and most interesting educational resources cannot be well used and advertised if it's not for their presence and for our efforts to reach every single one of potentially interested people. So we are doing a lot to contact different media outlets here in Poland and also abroad. Excuse me, and also abroad. And we are, excuse me a second. So, and we are making our best to publicize our content via traditional articles in newspapers such as Wprost, Przegląd, Forbes Women. I've mentioned that already. We are also providing audio content via platforms like radio programs. We had a presence at Talk FM, for example, but also podcasts on platforms such as Onet.pl. This is a well-known podcast platform here in Poland. Those are just some examples. You can find more on our webpage. Going to the second branch of this efforts of ours, we are doing our best to build a solid online community around our channels on Twitter and Facebook, because we believe that it's critical to build a community that we can provide with very constant, steady stream of data-based content on gender and minority equality, and quite frankly, to provide some food for thought and some content that can be discussed between you and your friends, and thus, or you and your family, and thus broaden the reach of the importance of the matter of gender equality in science. So our third strategic goal that I've mentioned, let me give you some examples of that. We are compiling and sharing resources that are well tailored to the groups that are in need of them. For example, we are organizing workshops specifically tailored to women. We had a workshop, that's just one of the examples, on negotiation. It is very well known that women negotiate very differently from men. So they need their own toolbox that they can use in their real life situations. Another example would be a workshop organized on the strategies that are used by the European Research Council to eliminate bias from the grant application process. We are putting a lot of effort also to put together documents in forms of press releases and statements that bring a completely new quality to this kind of resource. We are making sure to fact check them, which I believe is super important in the era of fake news. We are also doing something very uncommon, which is we include the primary scientific sources that we are writing our press releases and statement based off within the document. It's embedded. So it's at the fingertips of the journalists who would like to dig into the subject. On the other hand, they can be sure that the content is of the highest possible quality and fact-checked by scientists, us, themselves. Right now, we are producing all our documents in a bilingual format, in Polish and English. We are in the midst of the transition to the trilingual approach. We will also be publishing our documents in Spanish, again, to broaden our reach. The take-home message is that we, women in science at Nensky, believe that the multifaceted approach based on networking to bring the highest possible quality education, societal outreach via traditional and less traditional outlets, and building the database of resources and tools is the best, fastest, and most efficient way towards gender equality and diversity in general in academia. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. We are open for collaboration, so we would be thrilled to hear from you. Moreover, I would be amiss if I did not say thank you to my co-counselors at Women in Science at Nensky. You have their names embedded in this slide. They are a group of incredible women, and the quality of work they do and the dedication is just astonishing. I am privileged to be able to work with them. With that, thank you for your attention, and I do understand that the questions are going to be referred to the question session afterwards.
Yes, exactly. Thanks a lot, Alicia. That was really, I would even say overwhelming, because you do a lot of different things, and it's really something to follow. Thanks for all those links as well to follow on social media all your activities. And now we will move into the next speaker. And she's a sociologist. I hope that Eva is already with us, so please turn on your camera and mic. And Dr. Ewa Krzakleska is assistant professor at the Institute of Sociology of the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, and her research interests relate to the youth sociology and gender equality and family studies. And since 2018, she coordinates the Horizon 2020 project already mentioned earlier by Anne, communities of practice for accelerating gender equality and institutional change in research and innovation across Europe. And it aims at supporting Central and Eastern European research institutions in implementation exactly of gender equality policies. So that's the perfect project to discuss today. Eva, I can't see you at the moment still, so if you could turn on your mic and camera by clicking the, for the moment, probably red icons to make them green. It worked a few minutes before the event. Okay, something is happening. Okay. I hope you will join us in a sec. Seems like there is some delay and switching on the mic and camera. I will try to relog you. Just excuse us for the small delay. I hope it will be okay in a moment. So Eva, I hope you're back with us. And now again, the mic and camera, or at least the mic, if it helps. And if the problem stays, we will probably move to the second panel, but just one more minute. Let's wait and see. Yeah, seems the problem is still there. I hope we will be able to solve it. And in the meantime, I think that the best would be probably to move to the second panel. and we hope we will be able to come back to you a bit later, so a bit of a mixture, but I don't think it's a problem. So now let's move to the second panel, which is about the Europe best practices towards gender equality, and here we invited three distinguished speakers from Lithuania, Germany, and Belgium to present their experiences in the field. And the first one to join us will be a Professor Aurelia Nowelskaita. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly, but we are very happy to have you here. Okay, hello. And, Aurelia works as an associate professor in Gender Studies Center at the Faculty of Communication of Vilnius University, and her main research interests focus on sociology on gender issues in general, research ethics and social research methodology, and she will present us the best practices towards gender equality in Lithuania and also your gender equality plan. So the floor is yours, Aurelia.
Thank you, Eva. Hello to everyone, and thank you for giving opportunity to present our experiences from Vilnius University. So yes, I will tell you very brief story of Vilnius University, which is the biggest, the oldest, and I would say most prominent university in Lithuania, and which has several branches in other cities, and it is composed of 15 academic and 12 non-academic departments, employs more than 4,000 academic and non-academic persons, and also have more than 20,000 of students. So actually, this is the only university in Lithuania of such size, and obviously it should and must serve as an example. So the context in which we operate, striving for gender equality at the university in Lithuania, legally is quite well defined, quite well described, quite well established. Actually, we have required laws on gender equality, and also we had several initiatives focused on gender equality in science in particular. But the main requirement in field of gender equality, and the newest requirement, which appeared in 2017 in Lithuania, it was amendment in labor code, and it is a requirement that each organization which has more than 50 employees must have gender equality policy. Actually, this requirement came before European Commission's requirement for Horizon Europe project, but actually what happened in Lithuania, that only those academic institutions, only those universities which take part in European projects, Framework 7, Framework 6 project, only those institutions developed gender equality plans. If to get back to Vilnius University, I just want to show very briefly some statistical information on the gender situation. What we have at Vilnius University is that women compose majority. There are more than half of female employees on both academic and non-academic positions, but then we move to higher positions, to the positions of governing bodies. We already have more men than women. Furthermore, then I'm very sorry for jumping like this. Then we look at careers again. We can see the same scissors as we have in science in many other institutions, that women compose majority on the lowest level, that studies at university, they are highly feminized, but then we move to professors' positions. We can see that again, we have much more men, much more male researchers, much more male professors than women. Then we look at women's and men's earnings at the university again. And well, it's probably symptomatic that in Vilnius University, as in entire Lithuania, women's earnings, average earnings are smaller than males, and the only position of associate professor or docent where women earn more than their male colleagues. So actually we are trying to find out how this difference may happen at Vilnius University. If we would look at data from community survey, again, we do not see here any statistical difference, but what we can notice is that women feel worse than their male colleagues at the university. So in these conditions, and in this national context, gender equality related activities in Vilnius University, they were started around 2018, 2019, and they outgrow from other initiatives which were related to improving working conditions at Vilnius University. Actually, at Vilnius University, all those things, if I may say so, started in 2015 by establishing administrative position of prorector for community of affairs, and their first initiatives, first activities were focused on conditions of people with disabilities. And then entering project Spear, Horizon 2020 project Spear, we started collecting data, and we started developing gender equality plans. So at Vilnius University, and working in Spear team, we started with close reading of GEAR tool, and actually we focused on our work was based or ground on three main areas of work. We started with learning about organization, with collection of data, analysis of data, and tried to define and ground existent problems. And actually one thing which we found out that it is not that easy to collect data, to collect reliable data in the formal organization. So we are still improving all systems, providing statistical data. In addition to that, in the project Spear, we had 10 volunteering departments, which volunteered for developing pilot, as we call them, gender equality plans for each department, and provided some education for entire university. So why was important to have those volunteering departments is the fact that Vilnius University is quite a decentralized organization, and as in probably all other universities, departments focus, departments work with different fields of science. So each department possesses its own culture, own traditions, which more or less relate to different fields of science. And in addition to that, it was very important to establish national network of stakeholders, and in addition to have international support. So in general, our gender equality plans in different departments, they are based on same structure, but depending on the situation in the department, this structure covers different measures. So we focus on personal area, and under which we have measures focused on improving working conditions, on life and work balance. Next area is related to organizational management. So we strive to achieve gender balance in representative structures. The data which I just showed was on entire university, but we have very different situations in different departments. In addition to that, we have several areas focused on study and research. And here we talk about integration of gender aspect interstudy process, interstudy context, and in addition to research, and area of institutional communication, which actually is very important, thinking about supporting, establishing institutional traditions, changing cultures, changing standards, and so on. So all those areas are interconnected between themselves. And at this very moment, we have already 5 departments where councils approved their gender equality plans. And we are starting developing a gender equality plan for entire university, which will be based on those JEPs which were developed and developed and implemented in separate departments. And here, actually, at the moment, we have the 2 challenges. The one challenge is that not all departments were joint SPEAR project. So actually, we have somehow to analyze the situation and involve them in entire processes. And is it symptomatic or not? But Faculty of Council of Faculty of Physics, they rejected gender equality plan and they decided to stay without gender equality plan, despite they have really obvious gender equality related issues. So the last thing, and indeed not least thing, I just want to point and to highlight, to emphasize that in Vilnius, working in Vilnius University and working in field of gender equality, it is very important to have international cooperation. And here I just wanted to thanks to facilitators of community of practice, which had to be presented by Eva right before. So yes, being a member of Arcus Consortium and being a member of community practice, that really brings much to our effort. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aurelia, for your contribution. Indeed, it seems that it is quite a process with some discussions and even some no on the way. So there's quite a lot to do. And now we will try to move back to Eva. I hope that the technical issue is solved now. So yes, we can see you, and I hope we will be able to hear you in a sec. And your slides are already on, so I'm very happy to give you the floor now.
Good morning, everyone. I hope now the technical issues are solved. I'm happy to present our community of practice, JNC. It's a community of practitioners and experts supporting implementation of gender equality measures in research and academia. And by hearing all the presentations and also reading the comments, we can see that now in front of our institutions, in front of the universities, there is like a huge task to design JEP. And as one participant noted in the chat, can we establish some kind of collaboration network, a gremium where we could exchange ideas about gender equality plans, about efforts we do in our institutions? How can we share knowledge and benefit from each other's experience? And I'm happy to say that already such a network exists, and it exists within the ACT project. It was created already in 2019 through ACT Horizon project, which is entitled Communities of Practice for Accelerating Gender Equality and Institutional Change in Research and Innovation across Europe. And the innovative idea behind the ACT project was to this time not gathering really institutions, but gathering individuals who work in the institutions, connecting them, making them exchange knowledge and sharing experiences, and through this fostering institutional change. Through this supporting them in implementing measures such as gender equality plans or other solutions like gender equal budget or some anti-harassment policies in the universities. So within this ACT project, 7 communities of practice has been created. Some of them have been mentioned, like gender budgeting. There's also a community gathering national funding organization. So hopefully NCBR could join also this community and share funders' perspective. Our community of practice, JNC, has a very particular focus. When we were creating it, at that time we did a survey around Europe, and it appeared, yes, actually in this region, the gender equality plans were almost non-existent. It doesn't mean that there weren't any measures for gender equality, but they weren't really formalized. There were some different measures, different initiatives of researchers, sometimes of management, to solve practical, let's say, selected issues, like implementing anti-mobbing strategy. HR in excellence was a bit entering already in Central and Eastern Europe, and institutions were gathering this award. So there has been some debate around gender equality, and there has been some momentum that institutions started to think about gender equality plans. But it was, let's say, the ground was not yet ready then. But still, we managed to gather in our gender equality in Central and Eastern Europe community 20 institutions in Poland, Lithuania, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Cyprus, and Ukraine. So this is our already a membership, and these institutions work together, learn from each other, support each other in implementing the change towards gender equality. What I want to point out, and maybe to give some more idea what a community of practice is, and what are the aims of our community of practice. So community of practice idea mostly lies on the idea that it gathers experts. It gathers really people who are on top of things in the institutions, who are ombudsmen, who are responsible for gender equality plans, who are working in the offices directed at equal treatment. And it really is connected to institutional change. So this is not really some individuals who want to share knowledge, but their individual activity is linked to institutional later commitment and also to institutional change. And that period when we started to work as a gender equality community, this thinking about GEP was just starting. So the aim was mostly to learn, exchange knowledge, expertise, and also to, let's say, make first step to gender equality by conducting diagnosis of situation, to see what already exists in these 20 institutions, what is to be done, and also to gather some statistics about our institutions and conduct the survey among the employees. And both these activities, you see, had this institutional aim to support institutional change. So what are these 4, let's say, benefits that our members say that they take from participation community, and that might encourage other institutional representatives to join our common work. First of all, a change of knowledge and expertise, and this is very much needed. It was a call that Gender Equality Academy has no more spots. We need more training. We need really more knowledge how to effectively construct JEPs, and also how to make them later effective, not only to have them on paper. So we have regular meetings in our community, and they, let's say, their main idea is to share knowledge between ourselves, between our country, in our region, because we know this situation is particular. We cannot always take the examples from the West and just copy them. They won't be accepted. We have a different cultural, political climate here. We have also different way our academia works, higher education institutions, but also research organizations. So this sharing of knowledge and matching internal expertise and external is very important. We have also working groups, organize conferences, training, and cooperate with other communities. So this exchange of knowledge was very important for our members, and in particular in relation to specificity of Central and Eastern Europe. because here our members felt it was more comparable what we actually can do. We also have a tool online map which gathers this part of this knowledge. So if you want to see what other institutions are doing in relation to gender equality in Poland, in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Lithuania, Cyprus, you can just have a look in our map. Second benefit is this promotion of practical tools. People were asking, are there some tools already available, and Gear tool was mentioned. In the ACT project, the GEAM survey was created and used in our organizations. GEAM is a Gender Equality Audit and Monitoring Survey, a questionnaire that can be easily implemented in your institution. You can just run it and almost automatically retain the results of the main, let's say, indicators of gender equality. And it's freely available in many languages, and we can also provide support in running such a diagnosis. In fact, more than about 60% of our members already conducted this study. Third benefit of participating in our community, what was underlined, is this grounding of actions of practitioners. Sometimes we feel as experts in these institutions as lonely riders, that we are the ones against the other, and we have to push some gender equality plans when maybe not everyone is so convinced that we need to have it or how it should look like. So this is through signing of memorandum of understanding, institution, there is, let's say, born this collaboration between this one individual and the top management, and this institutionalization supports the activities of this one usually expert or someone responsible for the committee running the activities. And the fourth benefit, which is, I think, in our region also very important, is to support people who are dealing with gender equality institutionalization in dealing with resistances. Due to our cultural political context, and maybe also resistance to, let's say, copy something that's being brought from the West to our institution, I think this is very important to discuss. Also, our members found that this community of practice is a safe space to discuss matters, how to discuss with people who are resistant to change, how to share good practices, how to negotiate, mediate the change, and also how to construct some arguments for gender equality. So we kindly invite you to join our community. As I said, first our aim was diagnosis, but with the JEP criteria and also by the development in our member institutions, we are moving towards JEP implementation. And here we are a bit changing and redirecting our actions towards more experience and advanced training on gender equality plans, and really in the phase of implementation of gender equality plans. All the information of our community is available online. We invite you to join us. Also, you could join as guests, participate in our trainings, and use our resources. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eva. I'm happy we managed to have you on air. Yeah. And now we will move back to the European experiences and to the next speaker, who is Dr. Katharina Meyer from Goethe University of Frankfurt in Germany, and she works there as an equality officer. And there is a dynamic equal opportunities office over there. So we are very happy to have you here with us. And she was responsible for the project connected with gender consulting for research alliances, which is also quite interesting. And she will, of course, tell us a bit more about the gender equality plan at the Goethe University, which is, I think, perfect example of JEP in terms of field of action, structure, and instruments. Katharina, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me and having me as part of this interesting and inspiring event. And as well to give me the opportunity of giving you an insight into Goethe University's gender equality plan. So first of all, I would like to start by giving you some context information on GEPs at German universities in general, as I think this might be helpful to understand from where we are coming from. So in Germany, gender equality in public service, which universities are of course a part of, is addressed in the federal law of each state. So in Hesse, the state in which Frankfurt is located, this is regulated in the Hessian Equality Act. And this act from the 1990s states that gender equality plans are mandatory in public service until the achievement of equality or equal opportunities between men and women in public service. So our university, as a consequence, has been required to have a gender equality plans for more than 2 decades now. And those acts, as I mentioned, are part of the federal law, so they differ from state to state, but similar regulations exist in every German state. So in the end, every public German university should have some form of a gender equality plan. However, at Goethe University, we understand the topic of equality in a broader sense, and we have a multi-layered approach. And equal opportunities at our university considers not only gender equality, but also diversity, anti-discrimination, and reconciling family and work. So our current action plan was one of the first GEPs at the German university, which integrated diversity and anti-discrimination into a comprehensive gender equality and diversity action plan. My talk is supposed to be 10 minutes long, and our GDAP is actually over 80 pages long. So unfortunately, I cannot give you all the details. And instead for today, I would like to give you a short overview on our process, the structure, and as well as a few best practice examples of our measures to keep it hopefully short. So let me start with the process. The action plan was developed by the Equal Opportunity Office of Goethe University in close cooperation with different stakeholders, groups, and departments of the university. And this took actually some time and effort to get everyone on board and to get the plan finally adopted and approved. But the action plan started now in 2019, and it will be in place until 2024, when we will adopt the updated version of the plan. So at the moment, in 2021, we are halfway through with the action plan. And the process will actually be evaluated this year by us in an interim evaluation. And then there will be also an external evaluation at the end of 2024. And in addition to this central GDAP of the university as a whole, every faculty of Goethe University develops also its own GDAP with regards to the unique situation and challenges within the different disciplines and to tackle the issues also on the faculty level. But in the context of the topic for the event today, I'm focusing in my presentation on the central gender equality and diversity action plan, as I think this will be of the most interest to you. So next, I would like to present to you our structure. The central gender equality and diversity action plan of Goethe University consists of 7 chapters representing 7 fields of action where we wanted to have different measures. So first we have analyzing and reducing underrepresentation, so to really get a picture on the current situation and where underrepresentation in which form exists at the university. Followed by the second field of action, gender equality governance and gender and diversity sensitive structures and processes, to really look at the governance level. Then they have third, the gender and diversity sensitive organizational and scientific culture, so really to get the culture change at the university. Then we have developing potential and promoting career path, so giving some career support for underrepresented groups and women in science where they are underrepresented in their career path. Fifth, we have empowerment and anti-discrimination as a very important point. And then we have promoting gender and diversity responsive research and teaching, so also getting into the content on what is taught at the university. And last but not least, we have the quality management of gender diversity measure as a very important point of this work. And each of those 7 fields is linked to a specific goal. So for example, the empowerment and anti-discrimination links to the goal of counteracting disadvantages and discrimination based on gender and different dimensions of diversity, and to strengthen every member of the university. Our action plan is structured so that every chapter has like a short introduction into the topic with a set goal, and an analysis of the current state when we started in 2019, and then also an analysis of the challenges we see in this action field. And this is then followed by a list of sub-goals and very concrete instruments and measures that we plan to install until 2024 to conquer those challenges. And as a product, the Gender Equality and Diversity Action Plan consists of a variety of instruments. And I would like now to close my presentation just giving you a few examples which fit into the recommended areas for a GEP given by Horizon Europe, as I think this might be interesting, the most interesting for you. So an example for work-life balance and organizational culture are our measures for a more family-friendly campus. So for example, we have different places for nursing. We have family rooms where you can stay with your child at the campus if you need to, as well as kid-friendly offices at every campus. And also our Mobi Kits, so our portable toy boxes, which we have at every campus. Also, there are a different variety of childcare options, including, for example, a holiday program for school children to take care of school kids, if the vacation time overlaps with the semester time. And instruments for gender balance in leadership and decision-making is, for example, our very new guideline on gender diversity leadership, but also our instruments for active recruitment of women professors as a basis of gender balance and leadership. So we support active recruiting, for example, with a guideline with very close steps on how to do active recruiting, and also with funding, for example, to invite promising women early on, so they get to know the university a bit better even before they apply for a professorship later on. This is of course also linked to the gender equality and recruitment and the career progression point and fields. And for career progression, we also have a training program for female postdocs where we have a few trainings every semester, especially for postdocs, for female postdocs, called Career Support. And we have also a statewide mentoring program called Mentoring Hessen, which consists of 4 different programs for women in science for all career levels. So from female students and doctorate candidates up to postdocs on their way to their first professorship to support them in their career path. And one example for the integration of gender and diversity in research and teaching content is, well, first of all, we have the Cornelia Goethe Center, which does gender studies in a whole for the whole university. It's very active. But we also have at the Equal Opportunity Office a workshop program for teachers to be. So where we organize different kinds of trainings for upcoming teachers on diversity matters. At the moment, for example, we organize a series of lectures on diversity in physical education and sports science. And last but not least, we try to tackle the issue of gender-based violence and sexual harassment through different instruments. And one very important one is our confidential counseling that is offered by our anti-discrimination center that offers counseling for different forms of discrimination, including sexual harassment for every member of the university. So starting with the students, but also the employees up to the professors. So everyone has the opportunity to get counseling on those topics. So I was really hoping that I was able to give you a few ideas from our process on concept, even in the given time span. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them in the Q&A session, or please feel free to contact me via mail.
Thank you very much, Katarina. It was very inspiring, especially though this table. I think it's quite useful to have a table with criteria from Horizon Europe and then some examples, what you can actually do to fulfill these demands. So that's very very informative, and thanks a lot for that. Indeed, we are running out of time. Obviously, we underestimated the whole time we needed for this webinar, but we also didn't want to keep you too long in front of your laptops. But if you are still willing to stay with us, that would be perfect, because we have for sure a very interesting intervention from Professor Veerle Drouwlands from Catholic University of Leuven, and we are very happy to have you with us now. And you are the last speaker, but definitely not the least one. And Professor is an associated professor actually of gender studies at the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium, and she coordinates the interfaculty course Gender Studies. And her research focuses on values, civil society, and religion in Europe, care and care policy, gender and leadership, and gender and science. All Flemish universities actually wrote the JEEPs already in 2014. And there's also a working group with the Flemish Inter-University Council that does the follow-up, and the president of that working group is exactly Professor Veerle Drouwlands. So we are very happy to have you with us. The floor is yours. Sorry for my pronunciation, but Flemish is still a challenge for me. And without further ado, yes, the floor is yours now.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me, and also thanks for your patience to listen to this short presentation, what we are doing and what we try to do and to establish in Flanders. Indeed, I will speak here from two positions. The one is being the chairperson of the Gender Task Force of the Flemish Inter-University Council. And the second one is, at the end, I will present a bit of our policy at the University of Leuven. But first of all, let me introduce briefly what we do at the level of the Flemish Inter-University Council. As you may know, Belgium is divided in 3 language parts: Dutch-speaking part, 6 million people in the north, and the French-speaking part and small German-speaking part. And the Flemish Inter-University Council actually is a council that where people who belong to the 5 Dutch-speaking universities in Flanders, the northern part of Belgium, where they meet and where they discuss common policies, where they try to negotiate. So actually it's the rectors conference where the 5 universities meet each other. And at that level, various working groups are organized with the aim to negotiate, creating dialogue, stimulating dialogue, and also, where possible, to discuss a kind of common policy regarding to the Minister of Education. So in the domain of diversity and social policy, we do have a specific working group on gender, which has been established in 2012 in response to a demand of the Ministry of Education, as they wanted to implement strict rules regarding gender equality in the various levels of university meetings. So yeah, this is what who are part of this council. Well, the vice rectors and policy advisors do belong to this gender task force. There is the academic gender expert, which actually is me, the chair of the task force of staff policy, the chair of the task force on research. And we, among our members in the task force, we do have representatives of the government administration. We meet now 3 times a year, and on our agenda, what we do is actually we developed, as I told you, a first action plan in 2013 in answer to the demand of the government regarding the implementation of a policy. And this action plan on VLIR level has been renewed in 2019, so quite recently. After the establishment or the agreement about this first action plan in 2013, directors decided to continue the working of the task force, and we got some tasks assigned. And the first task was a yearly monitoring of academic staff regarding to the numbers, of course, facts and figures. The numbers of facts and figures related to the male-female inflow, upward career movements, who is in which position, as we have seen from other colleagues in other countries, of course. Also monitoring of support staff and strict monitoring of the gender composition of councils and advisory boards. We collected data over the 5 universities. Actually, each university provides us with their data. We get them together in an Excel file or in nice presentations, and then we discuss whether there is progress made and so on. We also develop joint actions where possible. For instance, at this moment, we try to organize a common train-the-trainer program regarding implicit bias. And one of the focal points is, of course, an exchange of practices and experiences as there is now, for instance, the gender equality plans for Horizon Europe on our table. What do we do? Now I switch to the University of Leuven, which is, as you may know, a big university with 60,000 students. Part of them are Dutch-speaking students, part of them are international students. But our first gender action plan dates back to 1999. And since then, we do have a specific first Equal Opportunities Council, which has now, the name has been changed to Diversity Council by now. But let's focus on our gender action plan. And you see here actually an overview of we try to to set some very concrete objectives, but also in this overview, and I hope you are able to read it, you find the translation of the more abstract objective into the very concrete actions. So also collecting facts and figures is very important. We did develop a gender desk. We developed over the last years a search committee, which means that when there is an open vacancy for a specific position, an academic position, and in case there wouldn't only participants from one gender would apply, then the search commission is actually asked or invited to search for candidates so that at least there is a diversity of people who would apply for this position. There are all kinds of measures related to work-life balance. We do have a solidarity fund that tries to help faculties and schools to search for a replacement in case someone would be absent for a long time because of illness, for instance. Then there is a focus on gender research, of course, implementing gender in all the various levels of a research program. The monitoring, you can see here also what we try to establish over the years. And I also would like to draw your attention to the yellow one here, gender vanguards, which actually we asked academic staff who is in a position of in the committee to where people who apply for an academic job, where they decide about the files and about the applicants. Well, we appointed one person in each committee to be responsible for making sure that there is to reduce implicit bias in the whole procedure, and also to pay attention to how people are interviewed, if people treat members of the Commission treat the files in a balanced way, and actually really in order to avoid implicit bias towards applicants as much as possible. This is really just an overview. Over the last years, we developed some priorities, which you can read over here. Actions related to increased accessibility of HR processes. There is this gender action plan, both actually, the one of LIR and the specific one of our university. And during the last years, we also try to determine more the hurdles regarding to staff with a migration background. And here the intersectional perspective comes in, because female staff with a migration background deserve even more attention. Here you find also the priorities set for 2020-2021. So especially support HR staff in development and implementation of our new gender actions. As I told you, related to the appointment and the promotion commissions, try to make people more sensitive and aware about implicit bias. And here I would like to draw your attention to the really very, very well documented brochure of LERU regarding to implicit bias. I get you the web link at the end of my presentation. There is a pilot project about an inclusion scan for the group of science and technology, where, of course, as you may know, a gender gap is even more impressive compared to the other science groups. And there is on the context text concept of text related to the appointment and sustain staff with migration background, as I told you. At this moment, we focus also on what we call a new generation of gender actions, that is explicitly continue implicit bias measures, but even with stronger pressure than they got into the past. Also, we want to pay attention to the impact of COVID-19. There is a focus on more balanced board meetings and decision-making bodies. We put pressure on faculty, schools, and department boards to get at least one vice dean of each gender. And we set the objective of having at least 1/3 of the underrepresented group in the boards. And also we try to avoid homogeneous PhD commissions. And also we set up an objective that there should be in each doctoral commission at least 1/3 of the underrepresented group be present. Then related to equal opportunities in upward career mobility, there is this follow-up of systematic career development conversations. We want to make the information about flexibility of work organization and mentoring more transparent and easily accessible, because, and you may experience the same, we are convinced that all the information is available on our internet or intranet, and again, we figure out that people are not aware about measures, that they are not aware about the existing policy, that they don't know where to find information, and so on. So this focus on being transparent is really necessary. And there is then also an initiative of what we call tenure track coaches. We want all junior staff to actually get a coach and try to to lead them, to guide them, to help them through this very demanding first years of their academic career. And then, last but not least, we really need to pay more attention, and we want to pay more attention on staff with migration background. As the time is running, I just want to ask some, or to draw your attention for the websites where you can find all the information which is available in English and or in Dutch. I didn't find the English version of the VLIR website, but what's very I consider a very important publication is the LERU publication regarding implicit bias in academia, with very concrete measures, very concrete suggestions of what can be done. And on the website of the Jonge Academie, Young Academy of Science, you also find the most recent version of the gender charter signed by the 5 Flemish rectors in June 2019. I think it was yesterday, 2 years ago, that we were happy that the 5 rectors signed this common charter. And you can find the overview of all the measures taken there, the promises made on the website. And what we do with our task force gender of VLIR is monitor whether each university does what has been promised, if there are gaps where some extra measures need to be taken, and so on. So we do this in a kind of intensive collaboration among the 5 universities. And it's a kind of solidarity and respecting each university in its autonomy. But it's important to know that we have in Flanders also one inter-university Master of Gender and Diversity. The Ministry of Education was convinced that Flanders was too small to have more than one master program on gender and diversity. As I told you, we have 6 million inhabitants. And so the Minister of Education enforced us to develop one common master with equal participation of the 5 of the gender experts, gender and diversity experts of all 5 Flemish universities. So that's an additional argument why this collaboration within VLIR is quite important, because we need to work together also not only on the level of the policy and the academic policy of each university, but also we need to work together on the level of academic staff who is involved in this common master program on gender and diversity, which is actually seems to be a very successful master program. We developed the program, I think, 8 years ago. We started 8 years ago, and it had been, we had 25 or 30 students in mind during the first academic year. It seemed that there were 65 in the first year, and at this moment we have, I think about, this year we had about 150 first year students starting this year. So working together at the level of VLIR, at the level of the 5 universities, is on the one hand challenging, but it's also very inspiring, and it's a good forum for exchange and for setting common goals, respecting each autonomy. But please take a look at the websites and you will get much more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. It's indeed quite a long way and quite some inspiring examples also for institutions that are at the beginning of the road, let's say, of developing this gender equality plan. So we will for sure look into them. I'm afraid we are just running out of time, and that's a bit of a challenge now. I was actually looking at the chat box all the way. Sorry, all the way. And there are some questions and also actually quite some discussions over there was going on throughout the whole event. And I'm very happy that some of the participants and speakers as well interacted with each other. And I'm also afraid we will not be able to show all those statements and questions at the moment now. But just in general, I think that this is always about the balance. This is not about changing into completely women or completely ignoring situations where actually women are in majority. If that's the case, probably something has to be done in order to get the balance right again. So that's probably the right approach. There are also some questions about possible indicators, how to measure the achievement of objectives. And I was wondering, since we have you with us, Professor Freire, maybe you would like to comment on that. You have some ideas how to actually check if it's working after some time.
Yeah. Was it a question for me?
Yeah, I was.
Hey, yeah, okay, sorry, I'm also uncertain about it. Yeah. What it of course is it depends on which measures, yes. And working, how do you measure what works well? But we came across the fact that collecting facts and figures is the first step, and it's an important step, but it often needs also additional information based on more qualitative research, interviews or focus talks in order to get more precise information about what's going on. And for instance, facts and figures on VLIR level showed us that among academic assistants, or people who are preparing for a PhD, so that we found there in some specific functions more women compared to men. And then when trying to figure out why it was in specific, this precisely was the case, we figured out that there were more women active as assistants in education-related tasks. And the more research-related or research-oriented tasks, there we find more men. So that means that once again, there is we found the men in the tasks which had better starting positions to go afterwards for a research, for a PhD, which are the requirements, of course, for an academic career. While we find more women who are doing really very good efforts to support the students and to support meetings and the organization of education. But once again, this is a kind of, I wouldn't call it discrimination, but it offers a better starting position to the men or to those who are in the research-linked tasks for an academic career. But it needed more in-depth analysis of what's behind the figures there. So also, for instance, we tried to get grip on the impact of Corona measures on the academic career of junior staff. And there we learned that it was important not to think strictly in terms of gender issues. It didn't make sense to state that women suffered more from women in academic careers suffered more from Corona than men did. here there was a nuance. We figured out that the nuance was that men and women having small children or having young children at home, they suffered more from corona measures, while people who are without children or with children who are older, men or women, they suffered less, and they could just continue to work in their academic career as before. So it asks quite some additional information to get really grip on which processes are going on. And one of the big discussions again and again is, what do you do in schools and faculties where the inflow of female academic staff is low, but it's also the inflow of female students is low? Can you expect ICT, where there's at maximum 10% of female students, can you expect ICT to have 1/3 or female professors? That's a discussion that's going on continuously. But giving visibility to people is of enormous importance. I wouldn't say, and I'm happy that I didn't hear the word role model too often in the session, because I really don't like the word role model, because it suggests that you need a copy of something that exists yet. I think it's more important to speak in terms of inspirational person, because that offers that doesn't suggest that you need really to copy what the other person does, but at least it suggests that you get your inspiration, that a specific function or task is reach, that you can reach it also, that it and that remains very important for younger women, for junior professors.
Thank you for your answer. And as I said, since we are running out of time, I think we will stop now and move to the short summary of the event. And if some of your questions are still unanswered, please contact us, and we will also contact the speakers and follow up the discussions by the interest of this event and by the number of how many of you stayed with us until now. Still, we see that there's a huge topic here and interest, and we will surely come back with some further events on this after summer. So stay tuned for other things. And I would like to, if it's possible, still ask maybe Anne for some last reactions. If you're still with us, I see you on the list. If you would like to summarize from your side, if you were able to follow a bit the discussions, that would be great. Yes, you are. Okay. But we can't hear you. You're still muted, I think.
Yes, I'm still muted. Sorry. I did not follow everything, but I listened to the last speakers and to the one that followed my presentation. And I think it's great. I think and I see the activity in the chat, and it feels like there's a network building up and really exchange of information. And I think you really have a lot of good practices, a lot of contacts you can reach out to get more information. And it sounds that you already have very good grounds in Poland and connection with other countries. So the Commission, really, our objective is that everybody complies with the eligibility criterion, everybody understand what it means and moves forward into realizing the new European research area. And we want to help with this, and there will be more tools, more examples coming up. But already you have quite a nice toolbox with what you organized today. So we will be there. We're ready to answer more questions. And we look forward to seeing you implementing JEPs and also applying to Horizon Europe.
Thanks a lot, Anne, for your contribution and some encouragement words. And I guess Kasia probably would like to join me for a final goodbye. So we are indeed very happy to make this event for all of you possible, to invite so many wonderful speakers. And as I said before, we will continue. We will also stay in touch with Anne, of course, and we will propose some actions as NCP and also as NCBR office in Brussels in order to help you to prepare yourself for the next year deadline, let's say, for Horizon Europe. And as I mentioned already a few times in the chat, you will all receive slides by email from the system, from our system right after the event. So I hope it will work. If in case of any problems, you can always contact us. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Sorry for delaying, but apparently discussions are really vivid, and we needed some more time for that. And we will stay in touch and have a nice holidays, of course. Thank you. Bye-bye.